Okay, so now that you've received your Abyzz pump, should look like this. So we had some issues. That is why we have changed to our new sealing tape. So if you don't find the sealing tape on your box, it's either one that has been produced a lot earlier, which could always happen, but in general all pumps produced from now on will have this black and clear seal tape on it. So you should make sure that you have this on your box. And also the original packaging, which has our Abyzz logo on top. It's a environmental friendly box, so we don't use any printed boxes. And you should also find a label with the pump details, which is the serial numbers and the data which pump you'll find in the box. So please compare those with your shipping documents, and if this is alright, then you may open the box. If you find any issues with that, please notify us immediately. Just shoot us an email to support@abyzz.com, and ideally you'll send us some pictures of the packaging that you've received and we will check where you got that from. Alright, you'll find in the box next to some other stuff like documents, which are very important because you need to register your pump to get our additional 9 years of warranty. So you'll have 1 year standard warranty, and then after registering you'll have 10 years warranty. You'll find the driver, in this case a IPU driver A200, and in this case an A200 pump. To give you an idea on how to set this up once you got the pump, and for the first install, basically to let the pump run, we'll give you some details on how to program it right now. Alright, so we've mounted our pump in the water, and now we're going to explain the standard setup. So this is what it looks like when you switch on your IPU driver for the first time. The pump is stopped at 0% and it's always in mode permanent. You'll notice the lower line is always scrolling through show different data. We see the boost mode is disabled, we see there's no auxiliary module installed. We see the power consumption with 4 watts right now, temperature in Celsius of the driver left and right side, and the status, which shows OK. So now we can start the pump and let it run. Because of the small tank, we can only go to a very limited percentage, which is 0.1% in this tank. Just press start. Now the motor is basically running, and we're saying, alright, run with 0.1%. And now the pump is already running and we can save the speed. If we don't save the speed and the pump or the driver loses its power, then it will go back into the old operation, which was the last status saved, which in this case would have been running at 0%. That is why we always save after a change of our permanent RPMs, and now the pump will start over again at running 0.1%. This is basically the only setup you need to do when you're installing the pump as, for example, a return pump. Just adjust the speed to the required flow, and then you press M to save the speed. Now, if you want to go into the menu, just press M, and now with the up and down arrows, you can cycle through the menu. We're going to start going down. It doesn't matter whether you go down or up, just press always the same button. So, in the first screen in the menu, we see the mode is permanent, and we see the actual speed of the pump, which is the rotation of the shaft is 300 RPM. Here we see the firmware, which defines which features you might have in the pump. Newer models or later models will have different functions, and yeah, that's why these need to be checked if you want to find out whether they have a specific function. If you want to do a firmware upgrade, right now this is only possible in our facility. This is the operating hours, so the pump always records how many hours it has been in operation. The display service info, which is only for internal purposes for our service staff. The child lock function, which you can enable to secure the pump against well, just accidentally switching it off. So if this is enabled, you will have to press 3 buttons prior to be able to change anything. The aux mod settings, if you have an auxiliary module installed later on, maybe a 0 to 10 volt interface or an RS485 interface, this is where you can adjust the settings for those external modules. The speed 0 alert is now switched off. This is setting off an alarm if the pump is powered on but not running. So in case someone accidentally presses stop and the pump is still plugged in, then at some point it will just set off an alarm after 20 minutes because the pump is not running, and that shouldn't be the normal state of operation. If you want to switch this on, you just press up. If you want to switch it off again, press down. Dynamic control, here you can adjust the speed or the acceleration basically that the motor will do between changes of different speeds. So for example, if you program a wave in the pump, you can then change the dynamics so the motor doesn't speed up as fast, so you can have that a little bit slower, which gives you kind of a sine wave function when switching in between 2 speeds. Here you can adjust the contrast of the LC display, so in case your driver gets warm or you have a very cold environment, just keep start stop pressed and dial this up and down, and you'll notice that the contrast will change. So now it's fading out, and I'm going to set it back to 20, which seems to be the best setting at this temperature. Here you can adjust your screen color, so in case you don't like orange, then just turn to blue, purple, white or green. Factory reset, in case you want to delete all the settings that you've done in the pump. If you enable the factory reset, the pump will basically go back into the original state when unpacking. The feeding timer, here you can adjust the time that you desire your feeding break to be at. This goes up in seconds, so you can dial that up to a very long time, just depending on your tank size and on your personal preferences. The feeding timer is enabled in the normal overview by just pressing the up and down arrows at the same time. Boost mode, this can be enabled to add a second layer of programming. So in case you want to have a wave function, for example, you can enable the boost mode to then have a different program running after, let's say, every 2 hours, for example. So as an example, you could have a wave going from 20 to 30%, but you can then put the boost mode on top, and after each hour the pump, for example, will go up to 100% for maybe 30 seconds. Here you can adjust your energy costs, so depending on where you live and how much you pay, you enter those cents per kilowatt hour, and then the pump will show when you reduce the energy how much you're saving. This is the summed up energy that the pump has been using in its lifetime. And then we're back in the start of the menu. If we press M again, we're back in the overview. So I hope you've enjoyed this first startup, so you get your first informations on how to run your Abyzz pump. Once you've unpacked it, we'll show you more detailed informations on the more advanced programming in a different video, in case you want to do waves, random programming, or make use of all the other functions that the Abyzz pump has to offer.